7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into the Vegas Squares podcast. Sitting here in the Zoom studio, myself, Spike, and Token Tony. What's up, gents?
Yo,
not too much.
Token, the scenery behind you just looks so peaceful and picturesque.
it's Zen.
Yeah.
That's the girlfriend's.
Oh, is it? Did she paint that?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we got some NFL talk in this podcast. We're going to chat about a couple of things, couple of quarterbacks, couple of wide receivers. Let's thank the sponsors here before we dive in. First and foremost, obviously, 12 Ounce Sports Network, where you can catch our podcast at 12ozsportsradio.com. Also, SeatGiant.com, promo code 12 Ounce Sports for your discounted sporting event, concert, and theater tickets. Fat Tees Barbecue, specializing in everything from brisket, ribs, etc. You can catch them in the Albuquerque area and catch them online at fatteesfood.com. And our sponsor, Wicked Cuts Jerky, you can catch them at wickedcuts.co. Some of the best jerky I have ever had. And hopefully we will be trying their product here soon on the podcast as well. All right. So before the podcast, doing the rundown, we were going to talk about Cam Newton and Antonio Brown because they are obviously in the news right now for one reason or another. But I read an article before the podcast that there were discussions in 2018 between the Seahawks and the Browns. The Seahawks would have traded Russell Wilson to the Browns for the number 1 overall pick. And to me, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah, I agree. And based on that analyzation as well as those leak that came out, I guess the Browns would have got a steal.
Is that a word?
What?
Analyzation?
Yeah.
Analysis is the word you were looking for, Token.
Yes.
Good God, we're beating the fuck out of Token tonight, but come on, man.
Dude, he's the boxer that just keeps getting back up.
I'm the punching bag.
Dude, I got to say, I mean, Spike, even before knowing what we know about Baker Mayfield, I would have taken Russell Wilson in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely. You have to take Russell Wilson there, even though, obviously he's a few years older. And Baker Mayfield may be, he looked like a can't-miss prospect. You have to take the guy where you know what you're getting. You can't trust these college kids. Because even though I'm fully on board, like the tank for Trevor, lose for Lawrence train, if somebody comes along and they say, hey, the Patriots, if you get the, say, number 6 pick in the draft this year, we'll give you Russell Wilson instead of you trying to trade up to take Trevor. You take the guy that you know. You obviously take the guy that you know. You have to.
Exactly.
It's another example of the Browns fucking themselves up.
I wonder if Dorsey would still have his job, Token, if he takes Russell Wilson right there. Again, we don't know. It says it was discussed. I mean, is it like a text like, hey, you want Russell Wilson? Haha, LOL. I mean, they can literally grab that little micron of information and create a whole story out of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's probably other facts around the story and whether those were planned and they were being discussed and almost confirmed. Who knows that full story?
Yeah, and the thing I got to wonder is if the Seahawks end up with the number 1 pick that year, are they taking Baker Mayfield?
Probably not.
Well, I mean, if they trade Russell Wilson, they have to take a quarterback, and what quarterback prospect was better in that draft than Baker Mayfield?
Well, I mean, they may have liked Sam Darnold. He was from USC. Pete Carroll obviously coached at USC. Josh Allen was in that. I know how much you love Josh Allen.
Fuck. He's proven me not completely wrong, but pretty well wrong so far. So kudos to Josh Allen.
I mean, looking back at it, I don't think he would have been the number 1 pick, but Lamar Jackson was in this draft too. I mean, if what we've seen of Lamar Jackson, he's obviously been more successful in the 2-year span than Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen have been. So I'm not saying he would have been number one, but that's what I'm saying. Like, who would they have taken number one? Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, I
Perhaps.
have no idea. Maybe.
It's crazy to think that they would trade a franchise Super Bowl winning quarterback for the number one pick. And if they went, who knows? Like I said, it's the craziest thing. Baker Mayfield, would he be successful in Seattle? Sam Darnold, maybe he would have been successful in Seattle, not having to play the Patriots. I mean, he's gotten destroyed by the Patriots in 2 years of his career. Josh Allen's been halfway decent, maybe under the tutelage of Pete Carroll.
Surprisingly decent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, like I said, there's Saquon Barkley. I look at the top 10. I don't think they're trading the number one. They're taking the number one pick to take Denzel Ward, Bradley Chubb. They're not taking a guard. I'm curious what they would have gone for. I mean, I really don't know. But to hear that there were discussions. Now, the article goes on to say that it was mostly conceptual, but according to former Browns GM John Dorsey, the discussion did indeed happen. So there was a call. And again, I don't think it was some April Fool's joke. I mean, I'm sure the teams talk all the time about hypotheticals or conceptualized trades, but Russell Wilson, my affinity for Russell Wilson. I don't know if I could see him in a Browns uniform.
Would you still be a Russell Wilson fan if he went to Cleveland?
I mean, yes, because of his previous work, I would root for Russell Wilson. And especially if he could turn it around in Cleveland, I mean, the first guy that's going to do that is going to be a god. And they thought it was Baker after the rookie year, which this year will be the, put up or shut up year. But I mean, look, since they've come back, in 1998, they've run through how many? I mean, we've all seen the jersey full of taped names.
Yeah.
25 or something.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, they've been around for 20 years and they've had 80 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Something like that. I
mean,
don't think you're too far off.
Whoever turns this team around, I mean, the only quarterback to play a playoff game is Derek Anderson.
Oh, really?
In the new Browns history, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he got a big contract for that year that he had, that one good year. And he got a real good contract with Carolina, I think, based on that, and then just went nowhere. He had
he played for a year before they drafted Cam. Yeah, he backed up Cam for 5 years or so. Yeah.
Oh wow.
He never materialized into what. But that's my point. He's not the guy that turned around Cleveland. I mean, who's going to get Cleveland a Super Bowl? Baker Mayfield or Russell Wilson? You'd probably put money on Russell Wilson.
Oh, for sure.
But speaking of Cam Newton, let's shift gears here. Report came out this week that Cam is only so far interested in competing for a starting job. Now, we talked about Andy Dalton signing in Dallas, and Donovan McNabb put out this tweet that said, Andy Dalton's got a job, but Cam Newton doesn't. He tried to kind of make it a racial thing, blah, blah, blah. But Andy Dalton has no intention of competing for a starting job. Cam has come out and said, as of this point, because, again, it's only mid-May, he will only take a spot where he has a chance to compete. So, realistically, he's cut his ability to sign to 4 teams? And I wouldn't even count the Bears. So where does Cam Newton end up next year? I mean, this is such a game that every day, the longer he's not on our roster, the more and more he may have to swallow his pride.
I thought the Bears were going to be a good fit for him. And I think you're right. I don't think the Bears now are a true fit, especially because it sounds like they're going to go one more year, live or die with Trubisky. For better or for worse. They may be okay with it. They may not. I don't know. So we'll have to see what kind of performance he does. But
I think after they traded or after they got BDN, that probably closed the door on Cam Newton.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that, because they're not going to have 3 guys competing for that one spot.
And again, we've talked about this. The sense of urgency may not be as high because of the fact that the COVID has shut down sports and congregating. But even to get a guy in and get your playbook, start to get your playbook mastered, especially, with some of these cities like, Miami now with Tua is going to stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't even see 4. I might see 2.
Yeah.
And one of them one of them, Spike, I think you and I would agree, is highly unlikely based on everything that's gone on, is New England. I mean, they've had every chance in the book to put someone in front of Jarrett Stidham in terms of competition, and they haven't done it. So realistically, all I see is Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville might be the one and only spot. I think you're right, because I can't personally think of anything else that is close, anything else that makes sense for him. It's just no other team really has the fit. No other team really has the offense. New England, I know that New England was a favorite spot for the pundits and the talking heads, especially on Boston Sports Talk Radio, but it just doesn't make any sense, because you can bring in a guy like Stidham who has that same kind of arm, same kind of, quarterback pedigree as a Tom Brady. Cam Newton's a completely different animal. And for a team to be able to craft an offense around him is going to take a lot. So I think that keeping with Stidham for New England is the path of least resistance. It's a playbook that he knows. And it makes more sense for him for them to go Stidham as opposed to trying to bring in Cam Newton and completely rework their offense.
All right, I got two far-fetched scenarios, but if you break them down, they may not seem crazy. Now, these would both probably result in Cam having to take single-digit $1 million money. Scenario number one. Joe Burrow sits this year. Cam Newton is a Cincinnati Bengal.
Ooh.
Okay, what's the other?
Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one first.
Okay. Well, based on that, I think the Bengals are just going to move forward with Burrow and see what happens, and hopefully he develops into something well. And I think it's better than signing Cam for even single digits. He'll probably not even sign for single digits, though. If he's going to expect to be the starter, he'll probably try to shoot for the 15 number.
If we're looking in July and August, then you got to get into a camp. Yeah. But if you got Zach Taylor, let's talk about the fact that Marvin Lewis had the longest leash in head coaching history that I've ever seen. I got to imagine Zach Taylor's not going to get canned after 2 years. Maybe he can sacrifice another year, develop Joe Burrow, get him in spot, because they're not competing, even with Cam Newton, let's be honest. Get him in spots where he can develop in situational football, where he's not out there running for his life. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. But there's been some quarterbacks that have run for their lives in their rookie year. David Carr, one being an example. He could go to that spot. I thought maybe that's an interesting stopgap. Like Cam Newton, if he's successful, and God forbid that team makes the playoffs, he can reset his market. With any teams. He could reset a market where he's making $25 million, a season. He's got a lot of proving to do, and I think that's why he's not getting jobs. All right, scenario number two, and I think Spike will like this one.
All right.
Scenario number two, he signs with the Los Angeles Rams, and the Rams cut or trade Jared Goff.
I think that would have made a lot more sense prior to Goff reworking his contract. But since he is now taking a more team-friendly deal, hang on. Anybody else notice on the banner behind me how the black and white part, the outline, when it comes down to a point, isn't centered with the actual point on the bottom of the banner? You see that? Right there.
You stopped the podcast to say that?
I just noticed it. Now it's going to distract me because that's all I see, and it's directly in my line of sight from the camera back to here.
But is it from the angle of the camera though?
No, I'm looking
in person.
I'm looking at it in person, and it is
it's
off.
Noticeably different.
To me, it doesn't even look like it comes to a point. It looks like it's rounded off.
Yeah, the bottom is rounded off, but it's supposed to be kind of down to a point. But that little nook at the bottom there, that should be straight down into a point.
To be fair, it looks like you hung it up crooked too.
No, it's a little wobbly. I wanted to I didn't want to pull it completely taut on the wall because when I have the fan on, it would just pull the nails out of it. So I gave it a little bit of slack so it could move around.
Use the nail gun.
Because there's
This is
a crease right across Western Conference champions that makes it look cockeyed to me.
yeah. Well, no, that's part of the when the fan's on high, it blows and the wind gets behind it, so that way it doesn't just get ripped off the wall. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the Rams. So I can't imagine Newton goes to the Rams. It's not something that makes sense to me now that Goff has reworked his contract. I think they're going to stick with him for a little bit, even though they do like to give up on players probably sooner than they should, as we saw with Gurley. I think this is still a team that is going to stick with Goff for now because he did lead them to the Super Bowl a couple years ago.
Right. I said that these proposals were far-fetched, but I can see. I'm trying to help out Cam Newton and find scenarios that he can maybe pitch his agent. Because
I mean, if he's going to LA, to be going to the Chargers before he goes to the Rams.
That's what I would think if he goes to LA.
Right, but I mean, you got Tyrod and Herbert there. He's not going there.
Why not? He could. I mean, Herbert's going to sit no matter what. He could easily beat out Tyrod for the job, and I can't imagine they're paying him big bucks.
Tyrod was the backup last year, so you're talking about familiarity with the playbook. I think Tyrod Taylor right now is better than Cam Newton.
Really?
Better option than Cam Newton.
I
think it's about equal.
Ugh.
I want to look up
Taylor knowing that playbook, and
Tyrod Taylor's healthy as well too.
Yes, and that's a big factor.
That certainly does help, but I don't know.
I mean, if Tyrod Taylor can get back to Bills form, I mean, he threw for 3,000 yards each of the years. Touchdown numbers probably be a little higher with the receiving core that the Chargers have versus what the Bills had, 3 years ago plus. I mean, I want to put out a poll on Vegas Square's Twitter of who you'd rather have on your as your starting quarterback right now. I think Tyrod might win that poll.
I think he comes pretty close to even.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I'd have to go back and forth and think about it, but I think you might be onto something there.
So yeah, like I said, I'm trying to find. I mean, backup quarterbacks. I think he'd be beating off phone calls left and right. Everybody could use a backup that's named Cam Newton that plays as good as Cam Newton.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I think Cam Newton finds a job the minute he's ready to be a backup. I mean, I don't think he's on the market long. I mean, could you imagine? I don't know how invested they are in RG3, but could you imagine putting Cam Newton as Lamar Jackson's backup?
I could kind of see a possibility with that, more likely.
Right. I think that's the likeliest possibility. Yeah. But the problem is that he's at this point not taking a backup job, at least from what he has said.
Yeah, I think once he changes his mind, that's probably the most likely candidate because he has that style to play with that playbook too. So,
would you want him in New England?
Cam, no. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. I think he's a great player. He's a wonderful citizen for whatever city he ends up at. I'm just not convinced that he is a right fit for a Josh McDaniels-led, Tom Brady cultivated offense.
It's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Yeah, I know. All right, let's move forward to somebody who, I hate talking about him on the podcast, but I am curious. I put out a poll earlier.
More Steve McNair talk. All right, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
I have to say, for all intents and purposes, we have not heard a peep in how many months from him?
Been a while. He's been quiet, either because he's smartened up or because his lawyers got a hold of him.
But I wanted to talk about him because there were actually offshore odds set for who would be in the booth on Monday Night Football this upcoming season. Do you care to guess what the odds of Antonio Brown being in the booth are?
For the yes, if I had to guess, it would be 2,500, so 25-1.
Not too far off from what I was going to say. I was thinking about 18-1.
100-1.
Oh, damn. All right.
Wow.
So that means if those are what you think, you should place a bet now because you're getting super value. Because if you throw $100 on that, he might pop off with 10K right there.
Yeah,
that'd be all right. The problem is that knowing Antonio Brown's image, especially for what he has been accused of, obviously nothing's been proven. Like it's the whole court system to go through, et cetera, and so on. But his image is such that a company like ESPN cannot hire this guy. They just can't.
He'd be too much of liability.
Zero chance.
So it's just I can't see that sort of thing happening.
Who would you want? I mean, I watch Monday Night Football and I like Joe Tessitore, but yeah, Booger bugs me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think Tessitore's gotten a bad rap just because he's had a cast of shitheads around him. I think for the most part, though, Tessitore's been pretty good. But you're right, Booger's just completely useless.
Correct. Well, whether we like Joe Tessitore or not, he and Booger are both out for 2020. The color and play-by-play roles will be available. I always liked Tirico, but obviously he's with NBC. But I think Pat McAfee would make a great color commentator.
Yes, I was thinking that he would be.
That is an excellent choice, yeah.
Yeah, McAfee would be great because he's got the rare ability to be able to tell a story no matter how mundane and just bring people in, lock them in, keep their attention, and it is fascinating to listen to him. But, I think he's pretty set in his job as the radio host and doing his thing. If he got a job doing Monday Night Football, I don't think he'd complain, but I kind of like the format that he's on because he can go longer-winded and tell longer stories and do his thing. If he's in the booth and he has to be quick and pithy, then it's
he's with,
not his strength.
Who's he? He's not with Barstool anymore. Who's he with?
No, DAZN.
DAZN, that's right, yeah. I mean, there's nothing saying that he can't continue to do that. I don't know if...
Yeah, what I'm saying is that it's for his style, it seems like that's the wrong format for him, where he has to, in between plays, analyze what just happened. If he can keep it short, great, but I kind of feel like he would exaggerate and, kind of relive it and go crazy and do his thing. And then by then, the quarterback's already under center and about to take the ball and not giving his play-by-play guy enough time to get into the rhythm of calling games.
Well, what if we went back to the three-man? I mean, I don't know how far back your all's Monday Night Football watching goes, but I remember I think ESPN had Sunday Night Football, and they had Mike Patrick, Joe Theismann, and I forget the third guy, but they had it was Dennis Miller.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Now, Dennis Miller didn't work out, but the three-man rotation, if the Dennis Miller comedy can turn into Pat McAfee, I think you might have something with younger viewers.
I mean, it's certainly worth a shot. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a personality that is sort of like that, but maybe more seasoned. The name that keeps coming back in my head, even though he's under contract with NBC, is Rodney Harrison.
Yeah, I think Rodney Harrison's a little old school in the sense of a lot of the things he talks about on that Sunday Night Football recap show is, and I don't hate this because a lot of players do this, they try to liken it back to the time they played. And while that's okay, every single time you're talking to do that, to me, I don't love it. Yes, Rodney Harrison, you're a phenomenal football player, but just because somebody wasn't as good as you doesn't, I feel like he has a little bit of a pedestal complex. Like he compares these guys playing today to what he would have done. And I'm not sure that flies a lot with people younger than us, which is the demographic they're trying to catch, because from what I understand, they don't have a problem reaching the 30 to 50 demographic. It's reaching the 16 to 30 demographic. So I thought maybe Pat McAfee would fit in really in that category as well. Another couple of names on the list here: Kurt Warner, Matt Hasselbeck, Steve Levy, another one. I like him in hockey.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. He does college football. I don't necessarily love his college football, so I'm not sure if that would translate to the NFL, announcing. And then a couple of active players here, which obviously more than likely won't be, but they're obviously higher up. Larry Fitzgerald, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers. The other name on here, which is actually, I have a hard time believing he would do it. More of a play-by-play man is Chris Fowler. I don't know if you guys watch. I know, Spike, you don't watch too much college football, but when Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit call a game, it's really good. It's really professional. It's really objective. They don't get too high. They don't get too low, which seems to have gone away from. Even Tony Romo gets excited, and then everybody accuses Joe Buck and Troy Aikman of being homers for the other team, whatever team you're not rooting for. So.
Right.
Yeah. I feel
they're more neutral based.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Herbstreit calls Ohio State games, and if you didn't know him, you'd never know he was a quarterback at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I kind of like about that. I don't want Kirk Herbstreit calling pro football because I'm sure while he could do it, his niche that he's carved out is obviously college football, and I don't want him to go away from that. But Chris Fowler would be interesting to move to the Monday Night booth as a play-by-play. You see Chris Fowler, a very mild-mannered guy, teaming up with Pat McAfee.
Oh, God.
I mean, talk about lightning and thunder right there.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting. I'm curious. Peyton Manning's already said no, which is fine. Eli could be another one. Tony Romo's already out after what he get like $20 million from CBS. So.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
They just backed the Brinks truck up to his house and said, "Take whatever you want."
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So we'll see. You guys have your perfect tandem. If you could pick anybody, past or present, to do Monday Night Football right now, I think mine is John Madden and Pat Summerall.
I like John Madden quite a bit. I think Pat Summerall was a little, I don't know. I maybe I'll take shit for this, but I really like Joe Buck.
I do too.
But I think that if we're just talking any kind of play-by-play guy calling a game, regardless of whether or not it's a football guy, I got to get Jack Edwards in the booth more.
Okay.
He's far and away my favorite, even though he is the biggest homer on the planet. He has to be the guy in the booth because I enjoy listening to that. And truth be told, for national broadcasts, I get it, but for local broadcasts, I want the broadcasters to have a vested interest in this team. I want the broadcast. They don't have to be cheerleaders for the team, but I want them at least rooting for the team,
Yeah, local broadcasts, 100% agree.
Yeah.
But I want, I like seeing, I'd be interested to see how he brings that to a national audience, and I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, for me, if I could combinate somebody like Jim Nance and John Madden or something.
I mean, that would be like the freaking Mount Rushmore of broadcasting right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just always liked John Madden and Pat Summerall. I thought Pat Summerall was always like the drunken uncle that broadcast off or that bounced off the eccentric guy. Come on,
Uncle Buck.
John Madden was just all over the place, and it got even funnier in his later years. But I mean, I have.
That was funny.
They were a comical duo, but after John Madden and Pat Summerall in video games, after it became other guys, I put the game on mute. NCAA football, I put the game on mute, and I'm not basing it solely off video games, but those two. Something about their voices that it just
made the experience better.
Yeah, same with Vince Scully. It was it was just I don't know. In my era, they were all old, so it was literally like your grandpa just talking to you about a game. So something about that. So, anyways, let's wrap it up here. Thank the sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports Network, where you can catch us every week on 12ozsportsradio.com. Seat Giant promo code 12 Ounce Sports for your discounted sporting event, concert, and theater tickets. Fat Tees Barbecue. Catch them at fatteesfood.com. In the Albuquerque area, stop by, get some delicious barbecue. And Wicked Cuts Jerky. Order online at wickedcuts.co. Use promo code WICKED20 for 20% off your order. All right, Token.
Yeah.
You can go eat your food now.
All right. Avocado time.
It's avocado time for 2. All right,
Gross.
for Spike, for Token Tony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening, and we will catch you on the next one.